Okay, so in this video, we're going to again talk about solving quadratic equations by completing the square. So please watch part 1 to learn how to complete the square, and then this part is just to do more examples. So remember, I have this, I always kind of like to write this whenever I'm doing completing a square question, this x plus k squared equals d. Just to remind myself, this is the goal. This is what I want. I want to somehow put this equation into this format so that I'll have x plus k, and then this will be a complete square, so squared equals some number d. Okay, so, and then also I always like to write underneath of that, what this x plus k squared is. So it's x squared plus 2x times k plus k squared, and then that equals d. Okay, so I just kind of foiled this out and got this here. I always like to start off my completing a square questions first by writing this out. Helps me remember I need to somehow make this equation look like this over here. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is add 3 to both sides. So then I'll be left with x squared minus 3, or minus x equals 3, right? If I add 3 to both sides, that's what I'll have. Okay, next thing is I need to try to make this term here somehow look like this term over here, where I have 2 times x times some constant k. So to do that, I'm gonna have x squared, and instead of writing minus x, I'm gonna say minus 2x. Okay, and then in order for this term and this term to be the same, I must have had to have multiplied this by 1/2, okay? So, because 1/2 is going to cancel, and then you'll just be left with the minus x. Okay, so these two terms here, underlined in red, are now the same. Okay, and then I want to add this plus k, right? This plus k squared that you see over here, I want to add that right here. So I'm going to say plus, now what is k? K is the term that is over here, this 1/2, right? That matches this k here. So this k squared is this 1/2 squared. Now if I add that 1/2 squared to the left-hand side of the equation, I'm also going to have to add it to the right-hand side of the equation. Okay, so the equation balances. Right? So if you were to simplify this, you would get this again, right? So these two are the same equation. Okay? Added 1/2 squared to both sides. Alright, so now this here side of the equation looks very similar to this side of the equation over here. So that means I should be able to write it as x plus k squared, where k, again, is 1/2. So I'll have x plus 1/2 squared. Alright, so this is the complete square. Okay, x plus 1/2 squared. If you were to take this and FOIL it out, you will get this. You'll get the same thing. Alright, so now let's just go ahead and simplify this over here to the right. So we have 3 plus, now the square for the 1/2, both the 1 and the 2 get squared, right? 1 squared is just 1, and then 2 squared is 4. Okay, so now I need to add 3 plus 1/4. Okay, 3 plus 1/4, I'm going to go ahead and multiply this 3 by 4 over 4, which is the same thing as multiplying it by 1. Okay, so that's not actually doing anything. And then I'm going to have, so 3 times 4 is 12. 12 over 4 is the same thing as 3. Okay, that plus 1/4. Alright, left-hand side of the equation did not change. Alright, so then I'm left over here on the right-hand side of the equation. I have 12 plus 1 over 4. So that's 13 over 4. This side of the equation did not change. Alright, that's my complete square. Now all I need to do is use the square root method and solve. So I'm going to go ahead and take the square root of both sides. So I'll have x plus 1/2 equals plus or minus the square root of 13 divided by 4. Alright, so I'm going to move this up here because I'm running out of room. So I have here, I need to subtract 1/2 from both sides of the equation to get x by itself. So x equals plus or minus the square root of 13 over 4 minus 1/2. Now I can simplify this a little bit more. I can take the square roots onto both the top, so 13, and the bottom of this fraction. So the square root of 4 is 2. Alright, now I have both fractions have 2 on the bottom, so I can combine them. So I plus or minus the square root of 13 minus 1 divided by 2. Alright, now I should write my solution set. So always start with the smaller of the two, so negative square root of 13 minus 1 divided by 2, comma, and then the positive square root of 13 minus 1 divided by 2. And then that's your solution set. So now in this next example, let's go ahead and do the same process. So again, I always like to write up here on the top x plus k, just to remind myself what I'm shooting for, and x squared plus 2xk plus k squared equals d. Alright, now this example is slightly different than the other examples in that there's a leading coefficient 3 here, and notice over here there is no leading coefficient in front of the x squared. So the very first thing that you need to do when you're doing complete the square questions is make sure that the number in front of the x squared is just 1, or in other words, there is no number there. So I need to divide this entire equation by 3 to get rid of that 3 out front. Okay, so I need to divide everything by 3, so I'll have x squared. Now 6 divided by 3 is 2. Negative 15 divided by 3 is negative 5. Okay, so now I can start with this equation. I need to, please remember to always first look. If there is a leading coefficient in front of x squared, you need to divide every term by that number so that there is no leading coefficient in front of x squared. Oftentimes, this does create complicated fractions that you might not want to deal with, but that is part of the process here. So make sure there is no leading coefficient there. Alright. And plus, practicing with fractions, that's a good thing. So go ahead and don't be too scared of the fractions. In this case, luckily, at least to start with here, we don't have any fractions. Alright, so now I'm going to add 5 to both sides. Okay, I'll end up with x squared plus 2x equals 5. Alright, remember my goal is to make it look like this equation over here. So I need to have 2 times x times k, this term in the center. I want this 2x to look like that. So I'm going to rewrite this as 2x plus, not 2x, x squared plus 2x, and then there's times 1, right? So k is just 1. And then, so then I have this plus k squared over on that side. So I'm going to go ahead and say plus k squared, 1 squared. That equals, now if I added 1 to the one side, I have to add it to the other. Okay, so there's the 5, and then I'm going to add on that plus 1 squared. Alright, so then this now is the complete square, looks just like it did over here. So I'm going to now be able to write this as a complete squared. 1 plus k squared. K now is 1. So x plus k squared, which is, k is now 1. So x plus k, 1, and then squared, equals 5 plus 1 squared. 1 squared is just 1, so 5 plus 1 is 6. Alright, so now I'm going to use the square root method. Equals plus or minus the square root of 6. I'm going to go ahead and solve this by subtracting 1 on both sides. Alright, so now I can write my solution set. Always start with the smaller of the two numbers, so the negative negative square root of 6 minus 1, and then positive square root of 6 minus 1. And that's my solution.